I'm watching the rise. And I wouldn't say I'm shocked cause I'm hardly surprised. This one's for the ride. This one's for who knew I'd make it, just needed some time. This one's for my wife. Could have left 1,000 times just about my.
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Randy Kaye, and I'm the host of the Caught Up podcast. Today we have Kate Malveaux. She is the co-head softball coach of the Auburn Tigers. Before arriving on the Plains, she spent 3 seasons as an assistant coach at the University of Tennessee, where she helped lead the Lady Volunteers to back-to-back Southeastern Conference regular season titles in 2023 and 2024, as well as a Women's College World Series appearance in 2023. The Tigers are off to an impressive 11-0 start this season, coming off a dominant 6-0 performance at the Shriners Children's Clearwater Invitational this past weekend. Kate, it's always great to see you. Thanks for taking the time to catch up.
Thanks so much for having me, and War Eagle.
Yes, War Eagle. War freaking Eagle, right?
That's right. If you ask Chris Malveaux, that's the right words.
Right. Well, so what's going on? How's life? How's the village treating you?
Oh, it is fantastic. And I'll tell you this, it's been great. The people have been great. Our players have been a lot of fun to work with. And it's just been, it's been really, really great just to get in the community and feel the love that they have for Auburn softball.
So much tradition there. I wasn't real familiar with Auburn until I kind of followed, because I don't know if you remember back, but the Myers family was here at Arizona State. And so I kind of followed them when they made that journey out there and kind of kept up on them a little bit. But yeah, how great is it to be there? Let's jump right into it. And I kind of mentioned it in my intro, 11-0 start. I mean, my gosh, what's it been like? Let's jump back. You're at Tennessee, and then all of a sudden there's a job opening, and tell me about that whirlwind of events that brought you to Auburn.
Whirlwind is a really good way to describe it. But I think it was a really, really great opportunity at a really, really good time to take a program that had already had success, like you mentioned it, back in 15 and 16. You kind of saw Auburn softball jump on the map, and people were really, really hungry for it. And so it was a good time to come. The athletic department is second to none. They push the envelope, and they're very fully invested in supporting the program. John Cohen, our AD, is a former SEC baseball coach, head coach, has been at a lot of the SEC schools. So he has sat in our seat. He understands what we need to be successful, but also understands the global aspect of it and what is at the heart of the Auburn family. So when you hear all that, you come, you experience it, and then you see and play against the talent. Like when we played Easter weekend when we were at Tennessee here at Auburn. And you feel what that environment feels like, and you're like, dang, that like there's so much untapped there. And so we believe in development, and Chris is a phenomenal hitting coach, and we wanted to surround ourselves with people who believe in development. And we are super fortunate that Auburn's the place that allowed us to do that.
Yeah, for sure. When you talk about Chris, and, as we all know, he's also the other end of the co-head coach, right? And I've heard it kind of said the 4th and 5th. So who's actually the 4th and 5th, right? Like which one is 5? Or we just kind of leave that one to an assumption? Or
well, I'll tell you, the dynamics of it have actually been really, really fun. Chris is a brilliant mind, and obviously he's been around the game for a long time, and so understands the culture and what a team needs to be successful, in addition to all the hitting knowledge that he brings over the years and just power offenses. I bring a little bit different of an aspect. I'm a little bit of fire. He's a little bit more ice and steady, which we definitely need both. So it's nice that we have that. And then our staff is just awesome. And so you pull in Riker Chasen and DJ Sanders, who are fantastic at what they do in their own right. You can obviously see what Riker did with the pitching over the last weekend specifically, but it just in general over the course of the season. And DJ sat in those seats, and so we don't even really talk about it in terms of who does this and who does what. We just all kind of get in there and grind, which is really, really nice. So we haven't really talked about who's this, who's that in terms of those delineations, I guess.
Yeah, he's a smart enough guy. He probably doesn't want to bring that up. He'll just assume.
What the beauty of it is what I am, he's not, and what he is, I'm not. And so you do, whenever you build a staff, you're you want to put people around you that help fill in the gaps where you know that you're going to need them, but then also have them push you and help you grow. And I think that's the beauty of what we've been able to do so far.
Yeah, when you say he's steady and like a clear mind, like I remember him, I think I met him like back in the Bradley days.
You did.
And at first I was like, I don't think this dude likes me. Like he was just very just analytical, kind of like he was just analyzing everything I said. I'm like, man, does he believe what I'm telling him? Or, you know what I mean? But like, obviously, as I've gotten to know him over the years, it's been, that's just who he is. And I like to say, I tell people all the time, like, I'm a machinist by trade. So I'm going to tell you a really quick story that I tell my girls all the time because they'll leave the bonettes like not in line. They'll be out of alignment with like the foul line down third. Like, let's say we're warming up on the third baseline and I'll go fix them. And they're like, gosh, coach, like, what's your problem? I'm like, my world as a machinist is basically this. And I'm going to like, if you took a piece of paper that you write on and you turn it sideways so you're looking at the small end, my world is you divide that small end up into 10 and then you work with like 3 pieces of those 10. Like when I was making something in the machining world. So that's where my mind goes. So I'm super analytical. Like, if I'm going to build something, I have to know how it, from the very minute I, get the material to the very last step when it's complete. Like that's how I am. And that's kind of what Chris reminds me of. Like he's just always projecting from start to finish. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, you nailed it. I'm telling you, what that man can do with some PVC pipe is impressive. Like we have like his brain just thinks differently, and how he gets our girls to use their bodies in different ways. Like I said, and there's a bazillion drills that he comes up with, but they are very specific to our players and what they do, which is really cool. But I think the cool thing about Chris is he's got that analytic mind that can see so much, but he also has a really cool way of getting in the trenches with the kids, and he can truly, like, he is in it with the hitters, like each and every one of them. And he goes on a different journey with each of them. So they know that he's in their corner and they have a really cool relationship. There's some sarcasm thrown around, a little trash talk. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's why they play a little gritty and they trust him, because they know that at the end of the day, he has their best interests at heart and he's really, really good at what he does.
Yeah. When you talk about that hitting piece, like has any of it rubbed off on you? Because I mean, I've heard you talk a little bit hitting. I mean,
yeah.
So I mean, I know you keep giving him all the accolades, but I think you've like hitting's a little bit in your corner as well. I know catching, right? Catching as well.
I've worn a lot of hats over the course of my time in coaching college softball. But so when we were at Tennessee, him and I, obviously it was him leading the way on the offense through and through. And I was able to get in there. There's no way that you don't go to a place like Louisiana Lafayette, where we started, and don't hear it and learn it. And then obviously being in the trenches with them at Tennessee and kind of just being around it. Like you see it, and then all of a sudden you're in the kitchen, like doing stick man walks, and you're like, what am I doing here? Like I'm in the kitchen doing this. So you learn it as you go, but then super, super awesome that I got to work with him in the cages at Tennessee, see him build start to finish, and then get to help along the way, because he trusts that I have a good enough eye and could see what he was seeing. We had some good conversations and kind of went from there. But the beauty of what we have going on here is we have DJ Sanders, who was an All-American shortstop at the University of Louisiana Lafayette, where we coached at under Mike Lotief. And then she ended up finishing her college career at Oregon, had a really, really great year there as well, played some AU softball as well. But the thing is when you have that kind of a hitter who has taught the system, has been in the system, you kind of want them in the cages on a daily basis. And so her and Chris have kind of spearheaded that along. I can speak the language and I can do all the things, but those two together are the dynamic that kind of helps our girls really get into a groove, which is really, really fun to watch.
Wow. Yeah. I was, when I was watching the game, Danielle Lowry was talking about how well in the history of the both of you, with your hitting and the philosophy. And she even said, she's like, I'm not really sure what the philosophy is. She was insinuating that she, doesn't spend a lot of time with you or hadn't or whatever, but she was seemed to be super interested in the why. And I always hear people talk about like, everybody's different, right? Because like, when you're working with like at my level at travel ball, like you're trying to get kids to kind of do things a certain way. And then you always hear like, well, everybody's different and not everybody's body moves the same anymore. Like, or they probably never have, right? But it seems to me that people are identifying that more. Is there any one thing that sticks out to you guys in terms of that? Or is there anything that you use? Because I've heard I was talking to Megan Bartlett the other day, and she mentioned motor preferencing. And so some of that stuff to me is just, I can't wait to get into it. Are you utilizing any of that, or is any of that kind of in your ballpark?
There's definitely a system in place. And I think when we talk about everybody's body may move a little bit different, I think what the beauty of Chris has done is he can take a kid who's 5'4" or our slappers and teach them how to hit for power and still have the other elements of their game. And I think at the heart of it comes down to efficiency and biomechanic movements. How some kids get there might be a little bit different, but there are certain things that we see that ultimately make hitters most effective and most efficient. And so I think when we talk about those and those kind of patterns, that's what you're chasing. I don't think we don't necessarily dive all the way into motor preference. I think all of us kind of understand motor preference, and we can see a kid that might be labeled this or that, but we don't necessarily tell our kids that this is what you are. We just help them figure out this is how your body moves. And this is the positions that if you want to be able to cover everything or as many of the pitches as we possibly can, these are the body positions that we need to get you to. How you get there may be a little different than everybody else, but that's okay. And we're going to figure that piece out. So I think more of it, the beauty of what he does is he sees how they move and he helps them get into the most efficient and effective positions.
Yeah, I heard somebody the other day on one of the platforms do something on hitting, and he talked about that he tries really hard to get people in the best possible position to be on time.
That's right.
And is that kind of what you're talking about when you talk about people get there differently? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, there's really probably a few ways to leverage a bat, right? Is there anything like for you guys that are non-negotiables that are like, well, we're going to be in this position, or we're going to be we're going to have, we're going to get our foot down or our heel down, or we're going to limit the amount of load we get into. Is there anything like that you guys are like non-negotiables or that you focus on?
Well, a lot of it, if you get the lower body doing a lot of the right things, the rest of it takes care of itself. So we do a lot of prep work before we ever get into the cage that focuses on those movement patterns, especially like with your hinge and all those type deals. So I think with the lower, again, a lot of it, we start lower half and we work from the ground up, but then there are definitely some pieces with the upper half that definitely help us be successful as well. But I think when you talk about timing and all those things, definitely starts from the ground up.
I love that, because I actually was at a 12U practice last night, and literally, we talk about getting ready, right? 2 phases to the swing, you get ready, then you swing. But the different steps to getting ready, to me, and I told him like this, it's like building a house. Like if I was going to go build a house, like you got to have the foundation. And I know that's super like elementary and like, old school or probably even overlooked. But like to me, the younger ages, if we could just get them into that athletic position to where they can have a chance to be on time, then, I think we just let the athletes' athleticism take over, hand-eye coordination and strength and all those good stuff. But yeah, no, I was looking forward to having those conversations. Let's jump into the husband and wife co-head coaching combo. Okay, you were given the opportunity to be on staff with at Tennessee with Karen weekly when Ralph retired, and I heard you guys in the press conference say that that there was trust there, that she trusted you guys. Looking back, it doesn't look like there needed to be a whole lot of trust, because it looked like obviously it paid off. What did you learn? Well, here's the thing too, is I actually thought that was the first opportunity, but I didn't realize the Latifs were also husband and wife. And I think Chris put it as there was a blueprint on how to do this. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think anytime you go into work with your wife, I think it's crazy that people don't realize the amount of times that sometimes we've been told no, or that it wouldn't work. But having, like I said, the Latifs there to show the way, and Karen and Ralph to kind of show the way, it does make your situation as a married couple a little bit easier, to be like, it has worked. And I think, obviously going and starting at UL was great to see how it could work in the dynamic. And then going on and moving on, even at Mizzou, we were able to work together in a different capacity, but we were still on staff together, just in a different capacity. So kudos to Larissa Anderson for allowing us to do that at Mizzou. And then when it came to Karen and Ralph, it was like those were the first back on coaching again, together moments. And Karen understood through and through what it was like to work with your spouse, and the value behind it and the trust that comes along with it. And for her to understand and appreciate what both of us brought, but then what we brought together was huge. But I think whenever they saw it done on that stage at the University of Tennessee, I think it opened some people's eyes to this can work on a bigger scale outside of just those one-offs that you hear about, because you're starting to see it a little bit more now, which is really, really great. But I think somebody just has to show the way, and we've had great people do that.
Yeah, I mean, when I see it and I think about it, I'm just like, you see those little posts by some of the kids, relationship goals. Like, I get to hang with my bestie all day, every day, and be around the game that we love. So to me, that's pretty cool. Was there any like examples or things that you learned from being around that you emulate, or that you were able to say, hey, I like that, but I don't like this? Do you have any examples of that, or anything that sticks out
in relation to like the entire, just in general, or in relation to that dynamic?
That dynamic, being being husband and wife coaches.
Yeah, I think the thing that we realized is that you can be super competitive. You can still be yourself. You can, go for it. And still, at the end of the day, even if you disagree about something, you still have each other's backs. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that you still can put the relationship first. And it's really hard in this business to say, I'm going to shut work off when I leave this place. If you want to be really great at it, it's just not possible. We do have to turn it off a little bit for our kids. Like, legitimately, when we sit down and we have dinner, like, it is straight up, we're going to play a game and talk about each other's day. And that's what that's going to look like. But the really cool thing is sometimes I think whenever you go into it and you can see, like, Karen and Ralph, like, even though Ralph wasn't on the staff anymore, he was still around, but just how much pride he had in the other person. And it was totally guilt-free, ego-free, that they genuinely wanted success for each other. And I think that's the beauty of it. And getting to share the highs and the lows with your spouse is super, super cool, because you are in the trenches together. And sometimes, like I said, it was fun to watch when the dynamic was like, okay, it's not perfect, but this is what it looks like to get back on the other side of it and go. And we can disagree, and we're going to talk about this later. But at the end of the day, like, somebody's got to make a decision, and just knowing when those moments are and when they're not. It was really, really fun. But to be honest with you, watching just the sheer joy that they had for each other's success is really, really cool. And that's something that, now that we're in this together, that, like, when the offense does really, really cool, like, I want to be the biggest fan, because I know how hard he works to help them get there. And I know how hard our kids have worked to get there. And the first person, if something happens with the catchers, he's the first person I run to. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm really excited for you. And vice versa. That happens all the time. But it's cool that we sometimes live the same life in different lives and still get to share our days with each other.
Right. I saw the press conference where he was, where you went up and said your piece, and then, and then it gets turned to Chris, and he's like, ditto. Like, totally was like, whatever. But yeah, no, that to me that's a cool piece. And to kind of be able to have the same goal and same responsibilities, as co-head coaches, but also having your little piece of it. Because, one of the things I noticed when I was watching the games is that, you're on third and he's in the dugout, kind of like, and what it reminded me of was like a baseball managerial type situation where he's just watching everything. Because right now, with my program, it's me and another guy. And I kind of feel like there have been times this fall where I've missed things because I didn't have somebody in my ear or somebody in the dugout going, hey, don't forget, you got runners at, second and third with one out and you're chasing two, idiot. Why are you sending them home with, why are you trying to score on a shallow fly ball to make the third out at home? But things like that. But that's what it looked like to me. Like, he was just comfortable allowing you to do your thing at third. and he's just in there managing. And like you said before, I think he's focusing offensively.
It's a really cool dynamic, but it's a dynamic we have definitely practiced. Like, it's not like we just kind of one day rolled out there. And again, the beauty of living with the co-head coach is that there's lots of conversations that get to happen. So I think the cool thing about me and Chris is we agree on all the big things. Like, there's no, like, the big things that really, really matter, we always agree on them. And so
like what are the big things?
Like offensive philosophy, when things, and ultimately, like, he's definitely earned the right to call the shots on the offense. Like, that is his baby through and through. I'm just there to facilitate his vision ultimately at the end of the day when it comes to the offense. And I know that the piece of it that I bring is aggressive and gritty in that regard. And that's how we're going to run the bases. And so I can help manage that part of it super easily. And I love that he trusts that I can do that part of it. But the offenses and when we're going to do what, those things are still coming from him regardless of where he's at. But he also has the ability then to go sit in the dugout and talk them through their at-bats. I mean, he can wear 1,000 hats at once, which is really, really cool and make it look super easy. What he does is not easy. But the offense is still he's driving the offensive bus through and through, but he's also in the trenches with them talking the game and what their at-bats look like and what they need to look like and what to expect when a new pitcher comes in. Like, that's all the credit goes to him. I'm just there to help him facilitate some run manufacturing when we're on the bases.
Tell me what that transition was like. Now, the minute you start heading to Auburn, I can't imagine what it took like. And those are some of the things I was thinking about. I told you a little bit off camera that, I'm watching you guys and I'm going, man, like, what was it like? Like, all of a sudden you got to move and your kids and school and, not to mention, what does our roster look like? Like, tell me a little bit about that transition.
The Auburn family made it super easy. So, like, kudos to our administration, our sport admin, Casey Page. They just crushed it in helping the transition be as smooth as possible. The kids, I kind of took it and ran. Like, that's kind of my MO. I'm very structured in that regard. So I'm like, they need to do this, 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 and this. And so we came down 2 days into having the job and just got our boots on the ground and started running. And so we found a house and got all those things going. But recruiting was of top most importance. Secondly, behind getting our staff in line. Like, getting the staff in line was the key piece, because if you have good people around you that are good at what they do, have the same philosophy in terms of development or overall just philosophy, that's paramount. But then also just good humans. Like, you want to be around good humans because, again, this game can humble you really, really fast, and you want people in your corner that you trust. But then also, you're going to enjoy going through those times with. So that was the first priority, was getting the staff. So the minute we said yes to the jobs, we were on the phone. Super fortunate that, we called Riker Chasen right out the gates. Like, Chris and I looked at each other. Chris is like, he's it. And I'm like, he's it. So we went really hard after him. Like, he was the one we wanted. And we were super fortunate that he also thought that it was a really, really good fit here at Auburn. It's close to home for him as well. But I think how Chris thinks about hitting, he thinks about pitching. And then obviously DJ Sanders, again, being able to help us, just showing the kids the way. Like, I've been in your shoes, and she's a brilliant mind in her own regard. You talk to her and you feel like, she's been in this game for 1,000 years, because she's just so mature and well-spoken and gets it. She gets it. So getting them in line and getting our staff in line was really, really big for us. And then we hit the portal really hard, brought as many kids that would fit our program in. It wasn't just like, go grab a kid and make it happen here. Like, there was specific things that we were looking for in order to help with the culture, and then obviously help fill some needs that we had with the roster. And then obviously get out and recruit as many tournaments as we could too, because the future of this place matters. So making sure we were at those travel ball tournaments. I can tell you, we weren't home very often. Getting settled in Auburn took a while just because we weren't home.
Tell me about that culture when you're looking for kids. What, like, initially, number one, I mean, it's probably a stupid question now, but it really looks like, I would ask you, like, how has the culture transition been, right? Dumb question, 11-0. But what does that actually look like when you're trying to describe it, or when you're laying it out to, number one, getting your current roster to stay, or getting someone to come over from the portal?
Well, I think with the kids that stayed, the beauty of what they had already is that they genuinely cared about each other, like, genuinely. Like, it was a family already. And that is, when we took the jobs, that's a big thing that we told them we wanted, because obviously we have kids and we want them to grow up and see, that you can work really hard for what you want. You can have a family, you can do all these things. And there's no better place than to teach your kids about life than the ball field. Like, you learn everything you need to know about life at the ball field. But knowing that the players that were here that wanted to stay wanted to be developed. They did. They wanted that extra development piece that we were bringing in. Obviously, they saw the offenses that Chris had produced. And then our pitching staff, once they realized that Riker was hired, they were ecstatic, because just it's a different philosophy, just a different system to be in. But the family piece, how close they were, that's vital. And the thing is if at the end of the day, there are common goals. If they're all not wanting it for each other, it doesn't happen. And I think that's been the cool thing to see so far, is that they're celebrating each other's successes. But when you talk about going in the portal, like we do, part of the Auburn creed is like, we believe in work, and we do. If you're not willing to come in and put in the work to be great, it's not going to work, because you can't just punch in, punch out and expect for it to happen. So the work that they've put in on their own time with us while we're in practice has been tremendous. But work is a big part of it. The willingness, like the grit, the never say die mentality. The kids that we brought in, they're not afraid of that. They're willing to push to let that manifest. And I think that's brought out the best in all of them. I think when they know that at the end of the day, we want them to be authentically themselves. We're not saying change who you are, don't be who you are. No, be who you are 100%, and let that be the best competitive version of yourself. But you also got to understand what that looks like for everybody on our team, and letting that happen. And so I think them being free to go do that has been huge, knowing that we value who they are as people. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there are standards in this program, like the work and how we're going to treat each other and what that looks like, that we're not going to sacrifice while you do that. And I think they have embraced that significantly, which is ultimately what's led to a lot of what's happening right now.
Yeah, the family piece and caring about each other. I heard a coach say one time that that good teams play for the coach, bad teams play for themselves, and great teams play for each other. And that's always kind of stood out to me. Tell me about any of like the first, have there been any hurdles that, like, as a head coach that you've had to like navigate, like anything big that's come up that you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be the first little test of being a co-head coach?
Well, I think whenever you go into a new program, regardless, like there's always a honeymoon phase, right? And then the thing is like, it's going to get hard, and it's just keeping them in that sweet spot of understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing. Sorry, I'm such a jerk. What's going on? But I think whenever you go and you talk about the hurdles that they're going to face, like things get hard, and there comes a point in time in development where you're like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I have no idea why I'm doing what I'm doing. Everything feels out of whack, but I'm just going to keeping them in that space of like, it's going to pay off. You just have to stay trusting. That's exactly trust that it's going to pay off. I think finding that sweet spot and ensuring that they know that it will pay off. Sometimes they were fighting and they're like, this is really hard and I don't know what I'm fighting for, but I'm going to keep going because I'm bought into that. And now they're getting to reap the benefits of it. And I think that's been really cool. I think the other hurdle that any coach new or not new is thinking about is what the future of athletics looks like. And so we're jumping into a new program and getting it off the ground and letting it run, but also knowing that things are going to change in the next couple of years and what that looks like. I think when you think about that, that's the longstanding hurdle that we're all thinking about. Let's
talk about the start of your season, and most notably the 6-0 start in Clearwater, or the 6-0 record in Clearwater. First team to do it since FSU in 2019. And I was watching, and one of the telecasts had said that you lost two of your top 10 hitters, only two of your top 10 hitters from last season. Was that Packer and Wildra?
Yeah,
okay,
that's right.
And then you returned three of your six pitchers. As it looks like Rolf Clemens, yep, and Tambora.
That's correct.
So here's a funny thing. I was watching your games, and I had watched a lot of games this weekend, and I saw this lady. I saw all kinds of people sitting back there. I'm really stupid like this. Like I take pictures of people and then I send it to them. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like it's something great now to be on TV. Like it's like everybody can be on TV now. But it's funny, the people that I recognize. I saw the guys from Newtown Rock. I saw them sitting back there, and then I saw this lady. I'm like, that looks like Stacy. And then I'm looking at your roster because I know who she is and I know her program and I played her. I didn't know her daughter. Like, I think one of the things that, especially now doing what I'm doing and trying to stay up to date in this space a little bit more than just my own little neck of the woods and my own games that I'm playing, is I'm trying to be more mindful of who I'm playing. Like, to give you an example, I was playing Washington Lady Hawks last month, and we ran into that pitcher that's going to the kid from Washington that's going to GCU, and I start looking at the roster. I'm like, oh crap, there's like 4 or 5, 3 or 4 kids going to that school. But so I never really knew Stacy had a daughter, but I was like, that looks like Stacy Tambora, and so like come to find out, that's who that was. But so I'll have to say hi to her. I didn't send her a pic, by the way.
You'll have more weekends. It'll be fine.
Right, I sure will. But you lost 2 kids, right? Shelby Lowe, it looks like she graduated, and then 2-time All-American Maddie Penta, who I looked her up. She's coaching at James Madison.
She is, and we actually
how exciting is that?
It's cool. We actually play them this next week, so
really?
Yeah. So it'll be fun to kind of get in there and play against her.
That is awesome. But tell me about the so offensively, you probably look at it and go, okay, hey, we still got some pieces coming back. But in the circle, obviously with losing what you lost and going out, tell me what that portal was like and bringing in the couple of arms that you brought in, especially from the portal.
Well, I think the beauty of our pitching staff, Riker Chasen has maximized what we have in the circle. And it's a huge testament to, again, what he does as a coach, but also the buy-in that our kids have had. Like if they don't buy in, none of this happens. So it was really cool for them to kind of go on that journey, because it was a very different journey than what they're used to. And when we went in the portal, the main reason we had 40 innings of returning experience, especially when you have 2 powerhouses, like you just mentioned. Like you're a little young in the circle. And so going out and getting some experience to go along with that, with Haley Rainey coming from Fullerton, was pitcher of the year in our conference. And then SJ Guerin, who's played she was at a World Series championship school 2 years in a row. So you find kids that have, again, we were talking mentality, and that mentality definitely mattered. And so being able to find SJ, who's been, again, in a program that gets it. And then same thing with Haley, that's just a competitor through and through. You don't end up pitcher of the year in your conference if you're not. But then that also elevated our bullpen as well. Like, I mean, the things that you look at what Shaylee Clemens is doing, and Milena, like when she gets in there against our team, like it's super fun to watch them go in there and compete. And so it's kind of made all of it really fun and come together. It just doesn't look the same. I think once everybody realized our pitching staff's going to look different, we're not going to have a bazillion strikeouts, because Maddie was throwing gas and with some nasty movement. So, but once we bought into that, it all kind of fell into place, which has been nice.
Yeah, I mean, even Clemens, it looks like she had a great weekend. Going 3-0 and doing her part, or is 3-0 at least on the season. And Rainey, I mean, I when I heard your guys' press conference, you talked about the portal going and getting proven kids. And obviously Rainey stands out. She had a lot of innings at Fullerton. What about SJ? Did she get a lot of innings at Oklahoma? I didn't look her up.
She didn't get a lot of innings at Oklahoma. But when you go and you're recruiting, coming through, like that's SJ Guerin was a name that you knew coming up, and had some special stuff, and then goes to Oklahoma and doesn't get the innings. But again, you don't go to a place like that and don't get the championship, like that mindset. Like she has that. She's just a never say die, gritty kid who's going to go in and do the work, and the highs aren't going to get high for her. The lows aren't going to get low for her. She's just steady. And I think when you think about like what we need, like steady is exactly what you need. But she also, again, in Riker's system, has made some really, really cool strides. So watching that kind of play out has been really, really fun. But going after her, she was different. She was a unique look that we didn't have, and we're like, that'll play.
Yeah, I mean, lefties always play nicely. And then you talk about, like you said, being in that program and in that environment. Not to mention, she's young.
Yes. She got 2 years left. So that'll be really, really great.
So that's exciting. And I'm excited for what you guys got going. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, especially in the circle, with what you have returning and getting better and coming up. Let's talk a little bit about the weekend. What stood out to you? I mean, first of all, it looked like, and I have some notes here. Looks like on the weekend you guys had at least 4 one-run games.
We did.
and 1 8-inning game, right? And then so that overall it's 5 one-run games and 2 extra inning games. That grit piece looks like it's paying off, right?
It definitely is, yes. But I think there were games like that first weekend, we ended up winning one, and Riker says it. There's the games that you're going to win 11-10, and there are days that you're going to win at 1-0, and you tip your hat to each side for doing their part and helping out because that's what it's going to need. But they never quit. They never quit. And I think on paper, it doesn't even do it justice. Like if you look at it, like the at-bats that Nelia Peralta had in the leadoff spot were fantastic. Did she get the outcome she wanted all the time? Probably not, but they were gritty at-bats that set the rest of the team up for success. Isis in the 2-hole is just a gamer. Like she is a gamer. And when the lights come on, it gets even more so. And so it's been fun to watch her do her thing. And then she came in the circle and threw and gave us some good innings as well. I think the team just is going for it. At the end of the day, they know that if we just go for it, it's going to pay off. And is it always going to end in a W? No, but we're not going to have any regrets. We're not going to look back and say, I wish I would have done X. And I think them knowing that they can live with that and knowing that whatever they have is enough is what's helping us just push the envelope and go. Now, don't get me wrong. We have a lot of work still to do. Like, it's not like we're just sitting back and like, oh, 11-0, we did good things and going. Like they clearly know, and we've been working on the things that, that we can clean up and go. But these kids, the beauty of it is that they've bought in and they know that, they can, if they go out and give their absolute best, no matter what the outcome is, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay.
Yeah. What game stood out to you the most this past weekend? Is there any one game that you were like, my gosh, like that was fun?
Well, the Oklahoma State game was fun. That was fun. They were all fun. Because again, you got to see a team go in there and fight. Like there was never a hang my head. Like they were fun because you knew that they were in every pitch. But that Oklahoma State game was straight up like playing chess and, trying to manufacture. And it was really cool to see the opportunities come up. And again, on paper, it was a 1-run ball game, but there were some gritty at bats. There were some really good pitches made, some really good defensive moments made. And it took absolutely everybody to make that happen. So I think that one was just fun, and not just because of who we were playing, but it was straight a game of chess.
Yeah. Well, anytime you can compete against a program like that and then, grind one out like that. And how about the big thing for me was like seeing Abby Smith get that home run. Was that true? Was that her first home run?
Yeah. And same thing with Rose Roach in that opening game for Clemson. So 2 kids who, have the slap game in their arsenal, and then being able to do that was so fun. Like, you want to talk about pure joy and pure joy for a teammate. That's what that looks like.
That gave me goosebumps when I watched it over again, because I watched it on X. I retweeted something and it was there, and I watched it again. That gave me goosebumps. Like, I was like, because I was sitting there watching that game, and no, that was great. No, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about athlete development.
Yeah.
What do you guys focus on at the college level once you get a kid there? Like, what are the things that you look at and go, yeah, we're going to clean these things up, or we're going to try to make some improvements here?
Well, I think we talked about it a little bit, is like just making them good movers and athletes, because sometimes like they just get into, like, if they've been doing the same thing over and over and over, you're like, okay, that you don't want to totally overhaul. We're going to try to do some things, but we have to make sure that they're good movers and athletes at the end of the day. And obviously those are the kids that you recruit and you go after. But I think feet are huge defensively. Like, we've put a huge emphasis on the feet and the eyes, and trusting that your feet and your eyes are going to work together. Offensively, again, getting into the most efficient patterns to be on plane and be on time. those two things for sure. And then pitching, again, it's the same thing to maximize ball flight. What patterns are going to help us maximize a kid's ball flight? And then longevity, because obviously, like you can need some, like SJ Guerin threw a lot of innings this weekend, but she's in a really good spot to be able to do that because of how her body moves. So chasing those movement patterns and just ultimately, like, where are they going to be the most athletic? And then the fun part is teaching them elements of the game that maybe they haven't thought about before, or even just like some of the shift stuff that we do, like those are just a little bit different that they may not have done as much of, and teaching them the why has been really, really cool. Because don't get me wrong, the kids know how to play the game and they are athletic and they are strong. It's been really fun to watch them get into our weight room and really get after it. Our strength coach PK has done a tremendous job with them. But I mean, we tailor it down to the nutrition and making sure that, they're knowing how to properly fuel their bodies and recover, and what prehab looks like. The training room's not a scary place to be. Like, going prehab is a big deal. So just maximizing all the resources that we have to help with that. But when you talk about a developmental piece, it is breaking down every little, like, legitimately, when the hitters come in, we break it down to a T. No matter where they start, we break it down. And that's the thing, is it's teaching the fundamentals to a T, so that way they can't get it wrong when they get out there and the high pressure moments come on.
When you talk about ball flight, you mentioned ball flight, and I assume were you talking about pitching?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're just talking about, like, making sure it's doing what it's supposed to do based on the pitch you're throwing.
That's right. And maximizing that. So, like, there's difference, and a couple inches makes all the difference. So, but again, I think getting your body into a good movement pattern, that's why we do. It's like you have a system, because if everybody's doing something totally different, it's you're chasing different things, but there are efficient ways to move. There are ways to help people best manage and maneuver their bodies, even though they may move a little bit different. So everything that we do has been from the ground up. And I think the beauty of what they've done is they've embraced that thoroughly.
Love that. What are some things that us travel ball guys can do to help you at the next level, help prepare athletes for the next level when it comes to development?
I think one of the things that we've ended up teaching a lot is base running, to be honest with you. I think we're teaching base running an awful lot. And it's fun when you get a kid that can totally wreak havoc and be able to get those reads. So I think that is something that is, I feel like we're teaching a lot, is base running. And then again, just making them really good movers, letting them be athletic. It's fun to watch the kids, we'll do things with our kids that we're just like, you're going to get in this body position, and you're like, how do you get out of it? Like, you're in this position. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to get out of it. Let's see what your body wants to do. So I think what you guys do well is you get them out there and you let them play, and you watch the throws and the runs and some of the plays that they make. You're like, dang, they're learning the game, and they're coached well, and they play hard. I just think keeping them athletic and teaching those, like I said, the base running is a really cool thing that I think they can tap into even more. Yeah,
there's a couple of drills that I like to do that I make all my outfield, infield catchers, everybody, first baseman, corners, and it's really like, they're like, Coach, I'm not an infielder. I'm like, I don't care. You still got to be in different positions to move and throw. And so I love that.
That's awesome.
And the base running thing to me comes up all the time. Like, I was talking to a coach, and she mentioned, having kids with anticipation and then understanding time and space when they're base running. And I thought that was the time and space thing stuck out to me. I was like, oh, I get that. Like, I get that.
See, and we talk about it in terms of speed and direction a lot. So yeah, 100%. So those, it is, and then the more reps that they get of doing it, the better and the better they get at it. But yeah, 100%. Every opportunity. Somebody's like, are we ever going to win games? I'm like, no, you're going to lose games base running. You're going to lose opportunities by not doing this the right way, hopefully, at the end of the day.
Right. 60 feet is such a big thing. What are your thoughts on practice? Are we practicing enough as travel ball coaches?
I think every program is a little bit different. So I think it's the hard question to answer. Just because I think there are programs that put a really high emphasis on practice, and there are others that are like, we don't necessarily, because of geographics, and those things all come into play. Like, when you have geographics all over the place, I think that's hard. The practice element is where you gel, for sure. So I think anytime that teams can get together and practice, that's fantastic, just because, again, you can kind of teach the philosophy. Like, if a team has a philosophy, that's where you kind of can get there and go from there. But I think there's a lot of factors that make that happen, or make it so it's not as easy to have happen. Ideally, it would be great if it could, but I think every program's a little bit different in terms of what they can and what they need.
Okay. And as someone who spends a lot of time with catchers, if you had to choose one, an offensive catcher or a defensive catcher?
Oh, I think it depends on your entire dynamic. So catching, I do. I have a soft spot for catching, just because I think it's a thing that's starting to get developed in softball. Like you saw the baseball boom happen, and softball is starting to kind of get in there and go with it a little bit, and the importance of having a really good one. I think it depends on what your team needs. So to me, I'm like, let's have both. We can develop both. I think if you can win the bottom of the zone, you can save your pitchers a lot of strikes or a lot of pitches on their arm. Like legitimately winning the bottom of the zone is huge. So if you can do that, that will save you pitches in the long run and could potentially save you runs. I think that's when you got to look at what the risk and the reward are, right? If they are big time boppers and they lose a few pitches, you're like, but they're going to make up for it on the offensive side. But on the defensive side, if they're like, okay, maybe you need a defensive specialist. You talk about that with shortstops sometimes too, right? Like their defense, it's just unmatched. It depends upon what your team and your dynamic need. I'm always going to say, I want me a good defensive catcher back there, just because I think it does matter. I think the dynamic that happens between a pitcher and a catcher matters tremendously, and what that vibe looks like. But if we can put a few less circles on the arm, we're definitely going to do it.
Got it. Not having a good catcher, you don't notice it. It's kind of like a first baseman, right? You don't notice it until you don't have it. Like
or an umpire. Yeah.
Or an umpire, right.
You know, like.
Right. So it's one of those things where like I always felt like catching is a neglected spot unless like for some reason that coach or there's a coach on staff that either daughter is the catcher or a catcher or was a catcher. So I've always kind of felt like that's been neglected. We've been really fortunate lately to have some really good ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Let me see here. We talked a little bit about hitting non-negotiables. Let me see here. If you had to start a 12U team or a 10U team right now, and I probably know the answer to this because I think we did talk about it, but I'd love to hear you say it again. What would you focus on day one?
Being good movers and being on time, like teaching. But I think, again, part of that good mover will help with the timing piece of it. So just like even with our kids, it's so funny. So like whenever Chris was trying to teach our kids how to hit, so like when they were really little, I'm like, I am so curious to see what you're going to do. And legitimately, like they hit a balloon. Like that was one of the first things they did was hit a balloon at the age of like 3 and 4. Like I'm talking 3 and 4, not 10 and 12-year-olds. Don't do that. But at 3 and 4, just because like it helped them understand timing. Like I got to let this ball come down and wait, and then I'm going to go and do it. So that was like our itty bitty kids. But I think still whenever they want to go out there and just swing as hard as they can and don't get me wrong, there is that like swing hard and go, but trying to understand the element that goes along with timing is a big deal. So timing would be big. And then just putting them in a good position to understand what your body's even doing. I think with the younger ones, what I would do from the start is ask them a lot of questions. What do you feel? Why are you doing that? Blah, blah, blah. Because the thing is the more they can talk about what they're doing, because that's the first, they don't want to look, nobody wants to look bad. Nobody wants to look bad. And at that age, it's like, oh, I want to do good and I want to do this. And that's the beauty of it. They want to be good. But I think the more they can talk about, well, this is what I was thinking. And then you can have a conversation. The mistake doesn't feel like a mistake anymore. It really doesn't, because you're like, no, it's just a conversation. I'm going to get better. So I think if I was with a 10 and 12-year-old group, hitting wise, it would be timing, but it'd be a lot of talking about, well, what'd you feel? Where was your weight? Were you on time? Why were you not on time? How do you get on time? So that way they can kind of get going as they get older.
Love that. Can they hit? Are they going to be hitters?
Can our kids hit? Oh, we're working on it. I think, all seriousness, I think one of them wants to play basketball, and I think one of them will probably do dance or play soccer, but they are both in baseball and they are working on it. They are working really hard on it.
And if you think about it, all those extra or those other sports are all still good, right? When you talk about feet,
oh, yeah.
Hand, eye, core. I have
our daughter, yeah, for sure.
Same thing. And their name, Gabe and Ellie, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so no, I'll be holding out hope. I've said this a few times, but I have a let me see, she's got to be 17, 18 month now old granddaughter, and so I am super excited. She just got a little glove, and I'm really hopeful. So yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, they come to the ball field and play. They do. They come to the ball field and they'll play. And so that's part of it, is like, sometimes it's better whenever our players work with them than it's when we work with them. So that is so fun.
Oh yeah. Well, you know that, right?
Yeah.
your mom and dad still, even though you're
Yeah.
at a major university and running a program. No, and I'm looking forward to that piece because I'm not there yet. Like I almost took her out to Arizona State the other day to one of the games. I had some kids playing out there, and I was like, but I kind of went through my mind, right? Okay, well, what happens if she has to go to the bathroom or I need to change the diaper? I'm by myself. So if my wife was going, I was trying to get her. I'm like, let's take her. Like we can get her out there. Well, she's not going to sit still. I'm like, that's fine. We'll leave in like 2 hours. I'm ready. Like,
well, in the softball family, that's the beauty of the softball family. Like legitimately, like, so our kids just run feral around the field now. Like they're old enough to do that, but there's also like the softball family will take care of them. They'll tell you when they're in trouble. They'll tell you all the things, but they genuinely want them there. So like bring her out. What's her name?
Penelope.
Oh, bring her out to the field. I'm telling you, there will be a bunch of people that will want to help. I guarantee.
All right. No, I'm excited about it. And then I want to touch really quick on the balloon thing. That's a really good one, right? That's awesome. Like that's great. That's going to stick in my mind. I remember hearing a coach talk about hanging a wiffle ball from a net or from wherever, and then just letting that wiffle ball move back and forth and teaching them timing that way a little bit, especially young. So I think all those are really good. Let me see here. We're winding this down. Let's talk really quickly, or more not quickly, about recruiting. Right? What's it like to recruit now? Like you said, you got and we can talk a little bit about the portal piece, but you got your staff in place, and now you're a head coach at Auburn. Like, tell me what it's like to go out and recruit players with that behind you.
Well, we're super fortunate that we've built really good relationships over the course of several years. Obviously, like Chris has been in the game for a long time, has done a really good job of building those relationships. And I was super fortunate, especially at Tennessee, to be able to help build those relationships. So I think now that people are seeing, I think the recruiting piece, it's invaluable now that people can see what it looks like. I think now that they're like, okay, this is what Auburn softball is. Because I think as you go into it and you're new, they're like, okay, well, we know them, but what's it going to look like? And what is this? And what is that? And well, now people are seeing it. And so I think now when we go out this next year, there'll just be some different conversations that are had. And we're super, super excited. We've put together some really good classes already. We can't wait for what that looks like. But it'll be fun to hit the road and go search for future Auburn Tigers even this next summer.
Yeah, with those facilities and just the whole thing. I mean, it's going to be fun. How's your 26 class wrapped up? Are you pretty wrapped up there?
Yeah, I think we've done a good job in the 26 class. Obviously, just talking in generalities, but we got those hard-nosed kids that want to be in there and are gritty and are incredibly athletic. Like that's one of the things you talk about recruiting. Like, what are we looking for? Athletes that can get in there and play and do a couple of different things potentially. And then fit, like we're like there. Anytime you go out and recruit, you're like, I can see where this can fit into the system. Like this is where I can make this small adjustment, and this is going to pay off in this way. But again, the philosophy, the mentality, that's why, it's so important to get to, like, once September 1st starts really getting to know those kids is really, really vital to know that they'll fit your system. But yeah, the 26 class, I think we're basically done. If something comes up. But I think that's the thing too that happens is you're never done recruiting, right? So like injuries happen, like we've in the course of our coaching careers, like we've had kids that have had a medically DQ or just different things happen with your roster that you don't plan for. And so it's just the portal's there and is something that's going to always be there just because those things do come up that you don't plan for. But recruiting and having those kids on your roster for 4 full years is invaluable. It's just invaluable.
Yeah. What about your 27s? You got your list completely made, done? You still watching, evaluating?
Still working on that. Like, I think they're still young and it's in that process as well. And I think you always have eyes, like you have eyes and have been following, but no, I mean, that thing's wide open.
Well, I'm going to send you my schedule. Come watch us play. I got a bunch of young kids. I'd love to at least get in front of you guys. But you got any final thoughts for me before we wrap this up? You want to put anything out there into the softball community?
No, we appreciate you thinking of us and having us on here. And we obviously respect who you are and what you do in the softball world and what you do for, female student athletes coming up the ranks. So, and then obviously this is a really cool platform to keep getting softball exposure bigger and bigger. So thank you for that, first and foremost. And we're just excited. We're excited to see where this team can go. And we know the work that we need to do, but the support that we have from across the country, to be honest with you, it's been really fun to hear just people say how much they're enjoying watching our kids play, and that support, it doesn't go unnoticed. And so whether you were an Auburn fan or you are just now becoming an Auburn fan, like, we're just so grateful for that and know that the work's just getting started, and it's our job to keep them there.
Well, it's exciting times. I mean, I think we would be a little bit unhinged if we thought that this was just going to keep going the way it's going. I mean, we know there's going to be ups and downs, but it's obviously an amazing start, and I'm super excited for you guys. I'm excited for you both. So please tell Chris I said hello, and I'm hopeful to see you guys out there this summer. I really appreciate you coming on. It's huge for me, and for what I'm trying to do, and just kind of keep talking the game and spreading the word. And I'll be creating some clips next week, and they'll be out a week from Friday. So just kind of keep you posted. But okay, well, I want to say thanks for listening. We will continue working to elevate the sport and get caught up with those who are influential in the fast pitch community. And hopefully we can help you navigate your softball journey. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Caught Up with Randy Kaye, using handle @CoachKAZ. You can also listen to the audio version of our podcast on Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you consume your favorite content. You can follow us on X and on Instagram using these same handles @CoachKAZ. Thanks again for listening.
This one's for my wife. Could have left 1,000 times just about myself.